Intro to algebraic expressions. Finding the additive inverse. All right, let's make sure that we remember what additive inverse means. Additive inverse means opposite. And when we say the opposite of a number, we're talking about the opposite sign of that number. Real quick examples. The additive inverse of 29 is negative 29. The additive inverse of negative 8 is positive 8. But what we're going to do is look at some algebraic expressions, and we're going to find how to make them become their additive inverse, which is going to be very easy. And then we're going to simplify that additive inverse. First problem, negative 6x plus 8. We're going to find its additive inverse. Since this is a two-term algebraic expression, the way that you can find the additive inverse is by simply changing the sign of each of those terms, because additive inverse means opposite. So we're going to make each of these terms become their opposites. So instead of negative 6x, it'll become positive 6x. Instead of 8, it'll become negative 8. Now, we'll eventually simplify that, but let's move on to the next example. 7x minus 13. Instead of 7x, it's going to be negative 7x. Instead of minus 13, it's going to become minus negative 13. So notice each term became their opposite sign. In this case, each terms were positive, so now they're both negative. We will eventually simplify that. But let's look at our third example. Negative 15x is going to become 15x. The 9 is going to become negative 9. Now, let's go back and simplify the algebraic expressions that we just made into their additive inverses. Instead of plus negative, we talked about this in the previous video, we're going to write this in a simpler way where there's only one symbol in between. So instead of adding a negative 8, we're going to write that as minus 8. They mean the same thing, but subtracting 8 is a lot simpler looking than adding negative 8. For the negative 7x minus negative 13, we know subtraction is the same as adding the opposite, so that's the same thing as adding a positive 13. They mean the same, but adding 13 looks simpler than minus negative 13. And then finally, for the additive inverse that we already had written as 15x minus negative 9, we can make that become 15x plus 9. Now, you might have noticed that there's kind of a shortcut to get from the original algebraic expression to its additive inverse, but written in simplest form. You can change the sign of the first term and then change the symbol in between, whether it was adding or subtracting, to its opposite. That's the shortcut way of going from an original algebraic expression to its additive inverse, and then it'll already be written in simplest form. Let me show you again with the other example we did. We'll change the sign of the first term, and then we will change the symbol in between to its opposite. And that'll give us the additive inverse already in simplest form. Last example. If you change the sign of the first term, and then change the symbol in between to its opposite, that's the quickest way from going from the original algebraic expression into its additive inverse in simplest form.